Hey guys, how's it going?
Haven't seen you in like ages.
Ages.
It's because we're too afraid.
Yeah, we've been really busy though.
Yeah, we have.
Super busy. And actually that's what we're going to talk about today, because we recently had the opportunity to go to a community event for a game that is not normally within our realm.
No.
Dragon Quest XI.
To be fair, it's not normally in the Western realm because we rarely get Dragon Quest games over here.
Well, we had them for a while. They just don't usually get promoted that much.
Yeah.
Although, to be fair, we haven't... Well, Dragon Quest X didn't come out here. The last one we had was 9 on the 3DS, I think it was. It was a while ago.
Yeah.
It was a while ago.
But either way, Dragon Quest XI is coming out, and it's only have like a month to go.
I think it's about 3 weeks now.
Yeah. And we got to have some early access.
We did. We obviously got to meet a load of people from the community as well, and it was great to speak to them about Dragon Quest, because I've never played a Dragon Quest game before.
No,
I don't think
me
you have
neither.
either. Like, it's something that's kind of alien to us. I think my only, and I guess our only experience with really is playing Boom Street and Itadaki Street. So, like, some of the enemies and some of the music is a bit familiar to us, but outside of that, I know very little about Dragon Quest as a whole.
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, that's just the thing. Like, I don't know how I've avoided it so long, but like I've played like Tales series, I've played Persona. You know, where did Dragon Quest fit in? Like, it's Square Enix's second biggest sort of JRPG.
Yeah.
Why have we avoided it? But no, I'm really happy that we did get the opportunity to, because you know, it's just a great time to be able to play it, really.
It is. And so basically throughout the day, we got to play 2 different demos. So we had one which was kind of more slower paced. The protagonist you were playing as, 11, was a lot lower leveled, and it was more about kind of exploring like a small passage of the story. And then there was a second demo which was a bit later on, so much higher levels. You have like a full party complement because you're supposed to take on a boss. But you could also venture around and do a lot of other stuff too if you wanted to backtrack and be a bit sneaky. So with that in mind, we're going to talk about the first demo, which was based in Cobblestone, I believe, which is the 11's hometown, essentially.
Yeah, it's really sweet. It has a sort of Shire feel to it. It's very sort of old-timey. There's horses. There's a lot of people around. They all seem to know each other. Like, it just seemed like it was a really nice little village. And it also kind of strangely reminded me of like a Zelda game, like just in the sense that, yeah, it was just kind of that sort of villagey fantasy feel. And it set up really well the story of 11, because essentially he's a luminary, which is a sort of reborn hero.
Well, he's a luminary. I guess was a hero in the past, like 1,000 years prior, and he's the reincarnation of it, supposedly.
Yeah, supposedly. They all seem very hush-hush about him in the town. One of the guys let slip a little bit that he may have been found floating in the river, that he wasn't necessarily born in the village. And he obviously has some connections with people in the town. There's one girl named Gemma who's very, very, very upset that he is leaving, and they constantly tell you.
It's his best friend, right?
Yeah. And his mom is there, Amber, and she's very upset that he's leaving too. But really, I mean, there's not an awful lot to do in the town. Right to start with. There's a few things that you can find.
There's stuff you can do. So it's kind of like, I guess if you think like Zelda's probably a good comparison, like the earlier Final Fantasy games when you went to small towns, essentially, like in Final Fantasy 1 through 4, I guess. You'd have these small towns, there'll be stuff you can do, you can walk around, there's people you can talk to, and they'll kind of give you little bits of exposition around the story. And there's like little things, I guess you can jump around and you can find things.
Yeah, like I found
quests as well.
Yeah, I found like little chests and stuff. So your next thing is that you go to Heliodore, which is like the next big kingdom on the outskirts of the village. On the way there, you encounter your sort of first enemies. So we encountered some slimes, which were adorable. and these little like hooded guys as well that were just essentially these little
Yeah.
small creatures with a huge beard and an axe. And bunny corns, I think, and
there were so many
cucumbers.
enemies, and I think, like, especially in the early part of the game, from what we learned, like the enemies that they make you fight against are just so adorable.
They are so squishy.
They are just like
you feel bad. You feel bad killing them because they are just so cute.
they are, and I just couldn't get over how adorable they are, because I guess in like Final Fantasy has kind of cutesy enemies, but a lot of them aren't really.
A lot of them aren't.
And in this game, like they're usually just like these small fat round things that have like the is it the cactus that just run around with like a little spear.
Yeah, and they're like really fat and just round. They're just little balls of cactus. It's like a cactuar if it swallowed a bomb or something. A bomb from Final Fantasy.
Okay.
That's where I'm going. A blitzball then, okay? Just something round, spherical. But yeah, no, they're really, really, really cute, and you can just spend ages. The combat system is actually quite interesting because it works a bit like Final Fantasy 13 too, in the sense that you run up to the enemies and attack them.
Yes, there's no random encounters at all.
No. And the interesting thing about it as well is that in this portion, you didn't really have the option, but later in the game, you have the option to assign your party before the battle even really starts. You can reset sort of what they do during the
tactics,
battle.
How they're going to behave, that kind of stuff.
And so in this portion, we were strictly playing as 11, so you didn't really have that, but there still was a lot of options of how you could play. The one that you had access to at this point was you could change whether or not you wanted him to attack a bit more like a traditional JRPG style, or if you wanted him to be able to run around the screen.
But I mean, ultimately, like unlike other games like the Tales series where the movement I think it can play into how you perform. In this, it's literally just a cosmetic thing. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't make any difference whatsoever in terms of your performance in the battle. I think the only thing that it does do is that it may shorten the battle slightly, because if you're standing next to the enemy when you perform your action, the animation takes less time. That's pretty much it. Like, it's not like if you run around behind the enemy, it's going to do a back attack or anything.
Or you're
like
going to be able to miss
as far as I'm aware, at least. From what I was talking to one of the guys at Square, and he said that literally there is no difference in which style you play. It's more just kind of what makes you feel more comfortable, essentially.
And during that portion, you also reach your first camp, which is essentially like a little fire thing, a little sort of fire hut thing. The only thing that I sort of thought about that was that, like, when we slept, it looked like there was definitely someone there who you could buy weapons from or potions from or something, but I couldn't find him at the actual camp. So I was just like running around like crazy trying to find this guy, because I'm just like, I really could use some potions. They don't call them potions in this. It's much different. But yeah, I was just looking all around for this guy, and then I just couldn't find him, so I just gave up in the end. But you can also pray there. That's what I found really interesting about it, is that it's a lot about like prayers and blessings.
It's very traditional Final Fantasy. Like the earlier games had it so that you had to go to a shrine to cure yourself and get rid of the elements, and resurrect dead party members. Like, it's essentially the same kind of systems. And I think I definitely, from playing the first demo around Cobblestone, like when you get to Heliodore as well, like there are clear similarities with the earlier Final Fantasy games. Simple things like you see an armor shop and a weapons shop, you go in one of the doors, and actually they're the same store.
Yeah.
It's like, that is just so traditional Final Fantasy, like it's beyond.
Yeah. And then another thing with the world map is the fact that you have a horse, and he's fun. Like, I mean, it's nice because like there's no real negative from what we could see from using the horse. Like, you could still run into enemies just fine. You didn't have to get off the horse or anything. And you could even run into enemies.
Could you do the sneak attack like the preemptive attack still with a horse?
I don't think so. I had one experience where I surprised an enemy, but I didn't have the preemptive attacks, possibly.
Yeah, like the real benefit of the horse is that it enables you to basically traverse around much quicker. And yeah, if you're running with the horse or sprinting, you can just kind of bowl enemies over.
It's so funny.
You don't get any experience for it at all, but it just makes things a lot quicker.
It just makes you laugh. Like, it
well,
just makes
like,
you
some
laugh.
of them have funny death animations, like when they get taken out.
Yeah.
I think the cactus enemy with a spear impales himself with it.
No.
Which isn't, I mean, it doesn't sound very adorable, but
No.
But
Trust us.
Yeah,
trust us in our morbidity. Yeah.
Yeah, so like at the end of the demo there was a kind of story twist, which we're not going to talk about. But like it definitely made me feel as though the story is going to have quite a bit of substance. And I think for a game like this, I think it's supposed to be about sort of 50 to 60 hours, they said, of story content, and that's excluding obviously all the additional stuff you can do. Like the story is therefore like how it progresses, the interactions between the characters, the kind of the twists and turns. That's going to be so integral as to how this game actually plays out. And although we didn't get to see too much of it in either of the demos really, I think just the sequence they put in there makes me think that it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, like obviously we won't sort of spoil it for anyone, but it is really really cool. But yeah, that's pretty much all we have to say on that one.
Yeah, the second demo was very different because, as I said, you had a full party complement. There was a guest character as well, and there were plenty of distractions, but neither of us decided to do any of them. We were just like, boss fight, do it.
Although, to be fair, I did spend like 2 hours on the first demo because I was trying to look for this stupid book. Like, I was questing around trying to find this stupid book and the cat and stuff. So I was like so stuck on that I just didn't give myself that much time to work on the second demo. But with that being said, it was really cool just to be able to see what it was like with a full party. It definitely seems like, again, a bit like a traditional Final Fantasy in that you have your characters, they have their sort of set jobs. We had sort of warrior, but he kind of could do everything. 11 can kind of do
it's
whatever.
More like a paladin kind of thing, because he could do some magic. Then you had the thief, and then there's two different types of mages, more like an offensive black mage and more of like a white mage. I think as well, like the combat, it felt very traditional in terms of like Final Fantasy VII style combat, but I think it's probably more related to Final Fantasy X because apparently there was a switching mechanic, so you can bring party members in and out of combat when you want. So if someone dies, you can just switch them out, and then you're fine to carry on.
Oh, okay, cool. But yeah, I mean, I explored a bit with the magic and the different abilities and stuff. It is interesting some of the differences between Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest in the sense that like for poison, like it's not actually called poison. It's like
all the spell names were completely different.
It's called something different, and I can't for the life of me remember what it was. But like. So that kind of thing could happen. There was also a lot of status, like other status attacks that it seemed to rely a bit on.
I didn't often know what the status effects were that I was being inflicted
I know. I was just like, what has been done to me? I was worried at one point that there would be like some kind of toad thing because I got like some toad oil, and I was just like, oh god, does this mean that I'm gonna get toad at some point? But I didn't. But yeah, I mean, I think the gameplay was a lot of fun. There's no like sort of fast forward type thing. Like there may be on the Steam version because they normally do put that on the Steam versions of Final Fantasy. But in the base game, there isn't really a way to sort of fast forward like with World of Final Fantasy. Not that that's like a deterrent, but it's just something that's
It was very traditional JRPG, and like it's kind of what people have been asking for a while from the Final Fantasy franchise in a way. Like they just that kind of like methodical combat. And I think the nice thing they've done is they've made it so that, as Lauren said, you can set your tactics before the battle begins. So if you only want to control 11, you can do that, and then the rest of your party members will perform actions on their own, depending on like the instructions that you've given them. So you can either choose to kind of take everyone's turn, which is again what we would typically do, or you can choose to have it more that they are much more independent to make battles a lot faster.
Yeah, and the other thing about it, like that I really liked, is that the random encounters weren't there. Just because, like, it meant that in the second demo, I got to a point where I was just like, okay, I want to level up more, but I'm not sure that I want to... I just wasn't sure if I wanted to fight anymore because I just didn't want to use up all my stuff. So I just decided to head straight for the boss and just try my luck. And, yeah, so that type of thing really... made it nice for me, and then also the fact that you could choose which enemies you wanted to attack as well. I mean, it didn't always work all the time. Like there were some times where you ran into an enemy and it ended up being like multiple enemies or something like that. But generally you could pick and choose who you wanted to fight, and I think that made it a lot easier for me to enjoy the grinding experience, because it wasn't like
it's on your own terms.
Yeah.
It's something like, you know, when I was playing through the Bravely games as well, they have the ability to just turn random encounters off. So if you want to just walk through an area, because like really that's one of the frustrations of the older Final Fantasy games, like just trying to get between save points, and you're just like, I just want to get to the save point, right? Just stop giving me... I mean,
it is part of the difficulty of the game. Like at the end of the day, it is part of the experience.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, yeah, it sounds a bit spoiled if we just sort of say, like, how we just want to get to the save points. But it is true, though. It is a frustration. Like, it is frustrating. Especially when you were in Final Fantasy X and ran into Marlboros and died instantly. But, yeah, I really enjoyed that bit of it. And... the fact that they respawn quite frequently, so you can just go back and knock a few more out. I
mean, like, not playing Dragon Quest, I think wasn't really much of a deterrent, and actually it was kind of nice to go in some like fresh with it. I think a lot of what was there was similar. Like they've got their own limit break mechanic, which was
pepped up.
And I said like, a lot of the stuff was very reminiscent of the older Final Fantasy games, which was quite nice to see. Because Dragon Quest, the one thing I do know about Dragon Quest is that it's a very traditional franchise. They haven't really they kind of modernized a lot of the graphics, but outside of that, everything else has stayed very traditional. So the combat is still turn-based, like the character models still look roughly the same, similar art style. The music still has a very similar style as well. Like it's so I think like it's going to be quite interesting to kind of delve into it and see kind of how we feel about it. But first impressions though are I'm really interested to see what it plays like. I
mean, I really, from just seeing sort of the interactions that we already had, I think the characters are quite fun. They're quite kooky, especially when you have like the guest characters come in. Some of the outside characters are also quite silly. I mean, it sort of had the feel of World of Final Fantasy in a way, but maybe not quite as silly, but it still kind of had, like, it had an air of seriousness, but it was still quite light and fun. It might not be that in the end, especially with that twist. I mean, that twist was not light whatsoever, but it still was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
So I guess my recommendation is, if you've really enjoyed the older Final Fantasy games or even the newer ones, I definitely would consider at least checking out Dragon Quest XI. It's coming out on PS4 and Steam, right? So you've got options, and it's coming out in about 3 weeks. So I think we're going to be doing a bit more Dragon Quest coverage in the build up to it, just so that we can kind of engross ourselves in it a bit more, and it'll be interesting to see how people will respond to that. But I think that's pretty much it for us. Like, we really had a great time playing it and meeting all the people that are part of the Dragon Quest community.
Yes, thank you so much, Square Enix, for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.